Good afternoon. On? Good afternoon. We'll try that again. My name is Dave Metafin. I'm the Chief of South King Fire and Rescue, and welcome to the 9/11 ceremony. Today is an interesting day for all of us. We all are here for our own reasons, but we're here to pay respects for those that have lost their lives 21 years ago. And boy, how time has gone by. I'd like to start today by acknowledging that we have the Federal Way Police and South King Fire Honor Guard here to present the colors. Please be seated. I'd like to ask Chaplain Sue Cross to come up for the memorial blessing.
What an honor it is to be here for this memorial and to be a part of this fire department. Would you join me in prayer? Lord, you are a God that remembers. You instructed your people in the Bible numerous times to set memorials throughout the land so that men and women of great renown and events would be remembered for generations to come. God, we come to this place of memorial each year to remember our own men and women of great renown, the events of that day, the courage and sacrifice of first responders, and to honor all who died from this tragedy. We remember the living, those that lost friends and family members, fathers, mothers, and those that with life-threatening illnesses due to this service in and around the towers. God, you understand the grief and loss and mourning that still lingers, and you have promised to be a father to the fatherless and a defender of widows and widowers. We come to be honest and say, we too fear that we might lose a loved one in such a terrible and sudden way. Thank you that you have promised that you have made a promise of peace that passes all understanding and have an intense love for each of us that cannot be quenched. You have set in the hearts of men and women a willingness to give up their life for others, some men and women. We all can imagine giving our life for someone we love, but to give your life for a stranger, this spirit and heart only comes from you, God. We thank you for these lives given, and we ask a blessing upon the lives of each first responder throughout this nation. Bless their coming and going, their families and loved ones. Give them strength and protection from harm. And I pray they would be honored and respected throughout the land for their sacrifice. Amen.
Thank you, Sue. Before we go any further, I'd ask any past or current members of the military to stand so you can be recognized. Our country owes you a deep debt. I'd also like to acknowledge the elected members in attendance today, to include my Board of Commissioners, the Federal Way City Council members, and anyone else that I may miss. Thank you for being here. I'd like to take the time now to introduce Police Chief Andy Wong to give a few words. Andy.
Distinguished guests, first responders, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be with all of you today. We are here to honor the nearly 3,000 lives claimed by the brutal attacks of September 11, 2001. Men and women who woke that day never anticipating an attack on their place of work or against this country. Throughout our history, certain images become ingrained in our minds. For all of us, the events of September 11, 2001 will forever live in our memories. It was one of those moments by which we mark time with our children and fellow Americans. We honor the courage of those who put themselves in harm's way to save people they never knew. We come together in prayer and in gratitude for the strength that has fortified us across these years. There is no higher calling than to do one's duty. In the fallen on 9/11, 343 firefighters and 72 police officers served in the highest capacity. They willingly gave their lives trying to save and protect others. They upheld the oath. They gave their unwavering support to their community and to our nation. And for that, we thank them. The men and women who wear the badge are well aware of these risks. They train, they prepare, and they're well equipped. But sometimes, none of that matters. Let us remember the firefighters and law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice on September 11th. When they left for work that morning, they knew what every firefighter and police officer and every first responder family knows, that today might be their last. They went to work anyway because their community and their country was depending on them. They embodied a critical quality, a sense of duty and patriotism. And as they looked at the burning buildings, they knew that they might not survive. They ran towards them anyway, not because it was easy, but because it was right. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for another. On 9/11, we saw so much evil, but in our law enforcement and firefighters and other first responders, we saw so much heroism. On September 11, 2001, our enemy tried to kill our spirit. But part of America's character is to fight back for our freedom. We're optimistic people, and we believe that the future is our friend. Today, millions of people from nations around the world stand united on one idea, that the destructive agendas of the radicals shall never eclipse the light of liberty. From the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan, where soldiers fought and died for democracy, to communities in America where police officers and firefighters perished in the line of duty, today honors their ultimate sacrifice. We live in the greatest country on this planet. This is because throughout our history, and even today, there are men and women who are willing to risk their lives to protect our liberties. Today, we remember their service and the importance of honoring our firefighters, law enforcement officers, and soldiers. They symbolize order, peace, and prosperity. We have the opportunity each and every day in how we conduct ourselves as individuals and as a nation to live up to the sacrifice of those heroes that we've lost. It is our duty and obligation to never forget them and their sacrifices. God bless you all.
We're lucky today to have such a wonderful memorial to come to and pay our respects. I'd just like to acknowledge the members that are past and current of South King Fire that gathered these artifacts through a labor of love. Tremendous work went into this, an awful lot of time and effort, and I thank each one of them for it. We're lucky to have this memorial. This is not part of today's program, but I do want to acknowledge this gentleman, retired FDNY firefighter is with us today. Michael Barr, would you please stand? Thank you, sir, for being here. I appreciate it. As the chief mentioned, evil showed up 21 years ago on our shores. And in spite of their best efforts, it didn't break our spirit. In fact, it united a country and to some degree a world. I'm incredibly proud of that. We have a lot of division in our world today, but that day we were united. We entered 2 wars. Thousands of people perished. More people were maimed and will forever have the scars of those wars. Some of the people that were injured in the attacks have lifelong scars as well, mental and physical. We need to pay our respects to them as well. Today, we have a guest speaker, Earl Johnson. I apologize. Earl Johnson was on the 51st floor of the North Tower when the plane struck. Earl is quite an interesting man. I spoke with him briefly this morning before we started. Earl has some stories to tell. I'm excited to have him here, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Earl, would you please come up?
It's great to see all these chairs filled up and standing room in the back. It's 21 years. It's enough period of time to get old, I guess. And that's what I was blessed with. I was given that opportunity to go home that day. Someone I've also had a chance to get to know is a country western singer. Most of you probably have heard his song, Darryl Worley, and Have You Forgotten? Have you forgotten what it felt like that day to see your homeland under fire and our people blown away? Have you forgotten when those towers fell? We had neighbors still inside, going through a living hell. I was one of those lucky neighbors that got a chance to go home. I got a chance to finish being a father to 3 small children and a chance to live a life that so many others were denied. And I want to thank the members of this organization and Chris in particular for the love and the belief in this mission of building something like this. I've been all over this country speaking over the years. I have never seen anything in a private capacity put together like this with people. And I think it deserves a very, very special award. One of the opportunities that I have to do, take advantage of, if you want to call it that, when I'm given these opportunities and honored to stand up and address a crowd to talk about my personal experience, is hopefully to reflect upon the values that both the chiefs spoke about in terms of honor and a code and living to the most, to my mind, foundational aspect of being a good human, and that is being willing to sacrifice for others without being asked. And that's exactly what my story is about. That first plane entered the North Tower about 40 stories over my head that morning. And it picked me up off the ground. And it wasn't 15 or 20 seconds before you decided that whatever that was, and you didn't know what it was, that because the building was doing one of these cartoon type boing, that you needed to leave. You were 51 floors too far off the ground. And so I had 2 or 3 of my team in my immediate proximity, and we ran to the entrance to the stairwell and got in it and went down. And we'd had some practice. After the bombings of the towers in '93, the management and the building management was organized, and we had a fire warden on every floor, And during my employment there that summer, we were in the stairwell at least 3 or 4 times on practice drills. So we knew where it was, we knew what to do, and we knew where to go. And we went. And we were able to run down the first, 8, 9, 10 flights about as fast as you wanted to run in street shoes and concrete and steel, until we came to a stop. The analogy I use is, you're at the stadium, the ball game's over, and you're up in the 300 level seats. You might as well sit down and finish that beer, because you're not really going to go anywhere very fast. And so I don't think over the next 10, 15 minutes, we probably didn't progress a whole nother flight. The crowd simply compressed and pressed together. And it was crowded. On the stairwell this wide, there's 3 to 4 bodies right there, and there's 3 to 4 on the step in front of you and behind you. But it's fairly benign. There's no smoke, there's no fire. It's just very crowded with the lights on, and a lot of people wishing we could go faster, but we couldn't. And of course, during that first period of time, the second tower gets hit by the second plane, the South Tower. And while they weren't connected in the air, subterranean, and just physics, shockwave-wise, we could feel the concussion of that explosion just come into our building and go right across us and out the other wall. And it was at that moment in time that you could see fear born in your neighbor, if you looked him in the eye. And one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had occurred right then. And it's why I say I wouldn't trade this hour in the stairwell for any other hour in my life. People reached out to the hand of the person, the stranger next to them, and held their hand. People put their arms around someone that was emotional and needed that support and took care of them. Nobody trained us. Nobody taught us what to do. Nobody told us what to do. It was a pure human instinct. And I feel honored and privileged to have seen that in my life. And that is one of the reasons I talk about this. The other is I learned early on, getting up and talking about this was good for Earl. I've met a number of people over the years that have never gotten past this morning, and it's destroyed them. There are other people that couldn't bear that and have taken their own life. So you want to talk or look at a lucky person, all you have to do is talk to me, because I am a lucky man. Eventually, we start moving very slowly to the point where you're waiting and watching for the leg in front of you on that step in front of you to get out of the way so you can put your foot there and take another step down. And we continue that way. Another, 15, 20 minutes. And we maybe make it down into the mid to low 30s, high 20s possibly, when all of a sudden you realize that something had changed. It was getting uncomfortable breathing. The air became noxious. And of course, you don't know why at the time, but after the fact, I do know that it's because of all the unburnt jet fuel, kerosene-based jet fuel that was in those planes, had by this time soaked into the walls of the elevator shafts and the stairwells and had caught up with us. And it changed the air. And someone did, and you firefighters just don't throw anything at me, because I know somebody did something you're not supposed to do, and that's open a door onto one of the floors. And the strangest thing occurred. All this cold, clear air flowed into the stairwell. I was on the landing above, and people like the Pied Piper started to follow that air out of the stairwell onto this floor. And I got about 10 feet beyond that door onto this floor, and my knees locked up. I had a physical reaction, and I got bowling pinned by the people behind me coming out. And I stood up and I looked at one of my teammates and just looked him in the eye and said, "We have got to get out of here." And we turned around and pushed our way back into the stairwell to catch up with the crew going down. And I attribute that to God's enlightenment in my life, because it was a very clear message that if you stayed here too long, you were going to run out of time. And there was not going to be enough time to navigate and get the rest of the way down. So we continued down, and It's just been a long time, but we're only halfway, and there's a number on every wall, on every landing when you go down, and we're at the 26, 25 level. And all of a sudden, at the landing below me, I'm looking at these people, and they're starting to smile and a little laughter, and I go down another few steps, and all of a sudden, people are clapping and cheering, and you're just going, you know, what? What are you people doing? And then you see them. And it's a New York City firefighter climbing those stairs one at a time. And he's got a roll of hose over one arm, and the next guy's got a rebar and their air masks. And they're climbing those stairs one at a time, telling each and every one of us, hey, you guys are getting out of here. We're coming. And after that first one, there was another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. Everybody from that first responder community came to those towers that day, as Chief so eloquently described, looked up into the sky and saw that fire and smoke and came in and came up. And it was the greatest gift they could have given us, because without saying a word, psychologically, we knew that whatever was going on, if somebody could come in and come up, then we were going to be able to go down and get out. And it was just subconscious, and this belief that you could see leave people. Well, things were obviously more organized, and we were able to move much quicker to where we transported those, bottom 15, 18 stories very quickly, and got let out and guided across the interior of the lobby, which was a very ugly place, and went across the mall underneath the ground and came up on the far side and stepped out into the air. And as I cleared the low-level building, I was able to turn around for the first time and see what all of you have been watching on TV. And my eyes cannot absorb, my brain cannot absorb what my eyes are showing me. And at that point, there was maybe 10, 12 of our employees. We'd kind of all gathered together. They were guiding us, east and downtown. They wanted to evacuate the area, and I knew I wanted to get across the Hudson River to Jersey, and at least I could walk home. So I said goodbye to everybody, and I started up Broadway. And I got about 3.5, 4 blocks up Broadway, and I hear this horrific noise, and I turn around, and over the top of this shorter building, I see this top of the South Tower disappear. And as I follow that down to the ground level, now I'm looking at a couple thousand people just running at me. And I turn around, and I ran as fast and as far as I could go. And I avoided that dust cloud by maybe 2 or 3 blocks because I'm running upwind. By the end of the day, I had made my way to the west side where all the incoming vehicles were organizing, caught a, cruise boat that they turned into a ferry and got dropped off in Hoboken, New Jersey. Had never been there, never see a reason to go back. And I wound up walking halfway to Freehold, but I only got I got as far as Bayonne and wound up at the Bayonne High School, where they'd set up a Red Cross kind of first aid station for people and comfort place. And they gave me something to eat and a Coke, and I wound up going into this gym, and it was an old gym, excuse me, probably built in the 50s, beautiful wood fur floors, and I sat down in the far corner, and I just lost it. See, I had just moved my family from Bainbridge Island to Freehold, New Jersey on the 28th of August. And all of a sudden, after 35 years in Wall Street, I had never wanted to work in New York, but I just found myself needing to take a job, and that was the one that was available. And I knew at that moment in time that whatever the reason was, I had been through this and needed to have a job there. This was the day and the reason that I was there. And I'd just like to close this out by saying really publicly for the first time a little prayer that I've come to live by. That is, Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for all the days since that day. Amen.
Thank you, Earl. That was moving. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Marie Nielsen to come up and sing God Bless America.
As the storm has gathered far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we lift our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the plains, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I'd like to invite you to stand if you like and sing God Bless America with me as we honor this most amazing memorial. And God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home,
Thank you for that. As we near the end of today's service, I would encourage you to spend a few minutes and look at the artifacts behind me, to include a pair of boots worn by one of our own in combat, Special Forces Army Ranger Tyrell Rose. Inside the lobby, you'll see pictures of not only 9/11, but other events that we've been involved with over the years. I'd like to take a moment now to have just a moment of silence. Thank you. And we'll hear one final time, pipes. This concludes today's service. Thank you all for being here. Until we meet again, never forget. Thank you.